The point is that there is a better way to get access to capital, and I have authored legislation, the Small Business Lending Enhancement Act, which would basically provide credit unions, which right now are in this line of work, that are extending credit to small business, but are up against the member business lending cap, give them the opportunity to have that cap increased to 27.5% of their portfolio there. If we're going to get out of the economic doldrums, if we have a situation where over 70% of the new jobs are created by small business and small businesses reporting that they do not have access to capital, this is a ready way to do it without going out and borrowing the money, but instead allowing those institutions that are in that line of work to do their job. We had a recent Pepperdine study that found that the majority of small businesses right now are saying that they would like to expand during the next 6 months and that they need capital to expand. Their primary concerns, of course, are the uncertainty that's out there, their lack of access to capital, and of course the regulations that they're trying to figure out. Dodd-Frank might be an example of that some are going to speak to today. But with our economic outlook what it is, and with as many unemployed as we have in this country, I think we've got to be responsible, and we've got to be responsive to the requests of our job creators out there. We're going to hear from them later today. But the list of those people who have reported to us that they need this access to capital is a long list, and we have the ability here with this approach to bring in $13 billion in additional capital, which would go to create 140,000 jobs, which I would argue is very much needed at this time. And as we move forward, I think there's a general consensus that it's not politically going to be possible for Congress to go out and borrow more money for us to put the money in. Why not allow the private sector that's most adept at doing this?
I thank my colleague, Mr. Royce, for his leadership on this piece of legislation. I think it's extremely important. But I want to welcome all of you. I truly do. It's so important that we hear your voices as you go through the halls of Congress and start talking to your members. It really does mean something to the member. When they hear someone from their local area, they want to hear what's going on. You know, this piece of legislation that Mr. Royce and I are trying to get through the Congress, we already had a hearing. I think the hearing went very well. But this is Congress. And sometimes if there aren't enough voices, no one's going to do anything about it. So certainly it's up to Congressman Royce and myself to talk to our colleagues, to get them to understand it. And I'm sure they have credit unions back in their home. And they also heard the stories going back the last few years, where we would have small business people coming to us and saying, we can't get a loan. And these were customers. These were customers of some of these banks. And we're not given that bridge loan that they might need at that particular time. And then, of course, we know that we heard that a lot of them started going to the credit unions. And going back then, I'd be even saying, you know, the credit unions are there in the communities. They've always helped the small business people. Why aren't we doing more to help them bridge that gap? That's what's important. You know, Mr. Royce said, you know, it's all about jobs. And it is about jobs. And we also know small businesses has always been the engine that kept this economy going. And it's up to many of us to make sure that keeps going. So I'm proud to be part of this legislation, but we can't do it alone. You know, we can introduce the legislation, we can fight for it, we can force to have a committee hearing on it so people can hear our voices, but it's the people back home, it's all of you, that have to do the heavy lifting also. This is working together to pass good legislation together. And I have to tell you, some people might have been amazed over the last week or so on some of the controversies that have been coming up here in Washington, where one group was fighting against another group. Use the social media to reach out to your people. One of the things that I think citizens feel that they can't really have a voice in government, it's totally wrong. It's totally wrong. We get hundreds and hundreds of emails every day. We get letters writing to us. We get phone calls. So people are telling us their point of view. And let me tell you, members listen to that.
Okay, well, everyone, welcome to our Small Business Hike the Hill. Thank you very much to Congressman Ed Royce and to Congresswoman Carolyn McCarthy for your leadership on this issue. And for those of you who don't know, Congressman Royce has been working on this issue with us for many, many years, and we appreciate that. It's time to get this done. This is not a bank credit union issue. This is a small business issue. It's an access to credit issue. It's a creating jobs issue. It's pretty straightforward. $13 billion to small business, 140,000 jobs, no cost to taxpayers. So what do we need to get this economy going? Congressman Royce said it. We need jobs. And we don't need to borrow money from the taxpayers to do it. We need to give credit unions access to do it. We have 75 business leaders from 15 states. Many of them have had to go to meetings. And I would ask those of you who are still in the room, small business owners, if you wouldn't mind joining me up front here. While I make my comments, I would appreciate it, because I know some of you have a meeting very shortly you have to get to. But I want you to see, these are real people who are creating real jobs in real communities throughout this country. I think they deserve a hand. Thank you so much. And let me tell you, I've heard some of these stories. Not only are they creating new jobs in their communities, but because credit unions were able to provide capital to their business, they were able to not eliminate jobs. Some of them were going to be out of business if the local credit union didn't step up. And if we don't get this cap raised, guess what? Credit unions aren't going to be able to provide the access either. So then what happens? The bankers have this wrong. This isn't about credit union growth. This is about access for small businesses to capital. And they have it even more wrong in this environment. They say there's no demand. There's no demand? Small business owners all over the country are supporting this. We have coalition partners. I want to thank each and every one of them that are supporting us. The only group that is opposing this are the bankers. And the bankers suggest, I saw just yesterday, an article that suggests somehow credit unions are the skunk at the garden party. Well, let me tell you something. There's nothing skunky about credit unions. Credit unions are owned by the members they serve, the people standing up here with me today. And until 1998, there was no limitation on credit union business lending. It's time to raise the cap. It's time to give credit unions the ability to serve small businesses, and small businesses the access to capital that they need. We're not a skunk. We support regulatory relief for banks. Thanks to Chairman Spencer Backus, I had the opportunity to testify on behalf of CUNA at a hearing on a banker regulatory relief bill, and we support regulatory relief for community banks, big banks. We support regulatory relief for everyone. We support regulatory relief for small business. But it needs to be done in a balanced approach. We need to take the legislation to provide regulatory relief for community banks and the legislation to provide regulatory relief for credit unions and move them through this process together. We have bipartisan support for both bills, Republicans and Democrats. How many things are Republicans and Democrats agreeing on right now? Well, one thing they should agree on is more jobs, and small businesses can create those jobs. So I've gotten a little worked up. That's good. For a good reason, for a cause I believe in. I want to, again, thank our coalition partners. There are numerous. We have a list of them over here on the table. A broad range of groups from all ideological spectrums and from multiple industries. We're going to ask a few of them to speak.
My name is Ami Kassar. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Multifunding. And in our business, we help small businesses across the nation figure out how to get loans at the best available prices. I'm here in Washington to, first of all, debunk the myth that there's not demand for small business loans. There's plenty of demand. The issue is that only about 20, maybe 25% of small business owners today are eligible for SBA loans or commercial loans through regular banks. The rest of them are being forced into a high-interest treadmill. As an example, yesterday, we had to put a contractor in Chicago into an equipment loan at a 32% interest rate. It was his only choice. His sin was that he's been in business for 11 months, and an SBA lender or a regular bank didn't want to touch him. He's creating jobs, he's building buildings, and he had to pay 32% to get an equipment loan. On behalf of him and the hundreds of thousands or millions of small business owners in America who need access to capital, this bill makes sense because the more demand we can create for cheap interest loans, the better it is for the small businesses. And I bet you if we had 100 small businesses up here, 99% of them would raise their hands to say if it's better for them and to create jobs if there are more places they can go and get cheap access to capital. Thank you very much.
Okay. So you said your competition has been beefing up, or?
We got some chances for some real growth this last several years. Our competition, a lot of them have gone out of business.
Really?
And this type of a business, environmental, there's a lot of reasons why we've lost a lot of our competition, but we have a chance for, and the oil field industry is really picking up, and that's part of our area, is a lot of the oil field business.
Right.
And so we got a chance to pick up a lot of business. We are picking it up.
Yeah. And you've gotten loans from a credit union, or are you still looking for loans, or what have you?
I've worked with a credit union for quite a bit. In fact, I was on the board for,
were you?
For 6 years.
Which one?
Roswell Federal Credit Union.
Okay.
In Roswell, New Mexico.
Right.
And
they want you money, and they want you money, or?
Yes, I've got some trucks, delivery truck loans and that through them.
Okay. Are they a source for potential other funding, or for other loans, or no?
They would be if they had an increase in their cap.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, I see. And you were on the board for how long?
6 years.
Oh, okay.
It's been and they're very careful on how they fund and who they fund to, and it's they go through just the regular process.
Yep.
They're very professional about it.
Sure.